All right. Nice to meet you. You've made it this far, last slot in Scala Days. So, the title is Scary Build Tool, so I hope you'll make it through this talk as well. But you might need some support, so why don't you say hi to someone near you, introduce yourself. Go ahead. Otherwise, yeah. Yeah. We have some time for that, right? Well, now that we're more familiar with each other, I hope I can also make you more familiar with SPT as such, and how to code a plugin in SPT. But some background first, like here. A bit about me. I'm Justin. On Twitter, I'm Ebenwert, and it's not showing here. And if you have any comments during the talk, you can tweet them at me, or just raise your hand, old school. So I work in JetBrains, the Scala plugin for IntelliJ, specifically for the SPT integration. So that's one motivation for me to talk to you here. And basically my job is making it easier for you to build your project, work with SPT. So I'd figure I'd build this talk in SPT. You're actually watching just a series of SPT tasks right now. So it's a bit of motivation maybe, like, okay, as you know, SPT can be slow. So especially during startup and resolving. So long time ago, we just wanted to make our builds less boring. So we just inserted Dinosaurs when starting. That's one of our first plugins that I made. But okay, that's great, a perfectly reasonable use case. But maybe there's a bit more you can do, like, once you start getting more of one project, you'd like to share some settings, some common information about your builds, about your environment in them, like your internal repositories or some default dependencies that some projects have. You share the code style, and generally do more. So SPT already has built-in tasks for stuff like packaging, publishing, maybe some petty tasks that I'll show you later. Presentations is not built in. I just built this here. Yeah, great use case. Other pleasant surprises. Well, shit. That wasn't so pleasant. I'm a bit scared. So, yeah. So before we get into more details, I'd like to know a bit about who I'm talking to here. Like, who of you uses SPT at all? It's more or less everybody, I guess. Wasn't that my last presentation? I don't know, let's say this is our 40 people. And who uses plugins in their project, just uses? It's, most of you. I'll just say this is 35. And who has made their own plugin yet? 1, 2, maybe 5, 6. And who feels they understand how SPT actually works? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Well, because I don't really, but I do my best. So what I did here, I had a task that just generates some source code for me based on my inputs, and I wrote it into I wrote it directly into the source directory, and it's some executable code, I would think. I'll just go and run this. And it actually, prints out my demographics that I collected in SPT here. So that's one thing you can do. Just generate some source code based on whatever you collect from the world outside there, from your audience. So now, just a bit about the SPT architecture. So this interface we're looking at here, who knew the SPT shell exists? as an interface to SPT? Yeah, not everybody, I guess, but most of you. Okay. Who knew IntelliJ Scala plugin has a SPT shell built in now? Yeah, also most of those. That's good to hear that it actually is available. So what we can use in the SPT shell are commands, so-called. They're just plain old strings which have some sort of syntax or don't, and they can change the build state. I won't get into the details of that. They're evaluated strictly sequentially. But yeah, that's boring right now. I want to get into the more fun part, which is settings and tasks. So who has a concept of settings and tasks in SPT? Not that many. Good to know Dale does. Right over here, SPT developer. I'm not sure if I can teach you much today, but yeah. So let's have a look at how this presentation as such is implemented. This is in here. And no, don't. Oh, come on. I just need to. No. This is what? Perfect fail. Okay. Worked every time except now. So presentation mode. Do we have it? Here. Here's just the title section I've implemented as SPT tasks. We have a definition of a task key and implementation, you could call it, or rather a value definition of what this task entails. So in SPT, in the task system, we have two main concepts that are rather similar. We have settings and tasks. The settings are defined once when your build is loaded or reloaded, then they can change. They can be changed by a command. And the tasks are executed every time you call them on the SPT shell or when you restart SPT and pass compile as an argument. What we have here is the title task key and the title task setting. So we set the title task key to be the headline. This is just a simple function that prints my headline. I can show it to you right here. Title, it prints the headline, waits for an enter. That's just one task. Subtitle, just prints the subtitle, waits for an enter. Slightly more interesting, I've defined a title section task. This is defined as depending on, well, this is defined as subtitle depending on title. So now I've introduced some sort of ordering, which by default doesn't happen in SPT except through explicit dependencies one way or another. I'll go into a little more detail later. So do we have our shell open? Yes, we do. So, okay, yeah, these dinosaurs get in everywhere, right? So the task system, as I've just explained, yeah, you've probably used it. Compile in SPT as a task. Basically, anything you do with SPT is a task or a command. It might seem a little weird. So you've seen over here, I've added .value. What does that mean? I'll get to it in a bit. So now, more interestingly, I've mentioned dependencies between tasks. Do you have a question?
Yes, please. Can I ask now? Or?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, yeah, there's a microphone coming.
So is that the Scala code I'm seeing?
Excuse me?
Is that in Scala?
This is an SPT file. which is mostly Scala with some special.
Yeah, because I'm seeing the very first line on line number 7, it's val title, and the line number 8 you're assigning that, so I'm just confused, whether it is.
This colon equals is an operator in SPT, which basically associates a task key with a value.
Oh, okay.
So if you look at the type of this whole thing, it's a def setting of task of string, and SPT file is essentially just a list of settings.
Oh, I see. So it's not pure Scala. I don't know. It's like,
No, this is not pure Scala. It's Scala with a little magic around it.
Oh, I see. Okay. How do I know whether it is, it is valid, whatever I am entering? Because it's a Scala plus something else, right?
Well, usually IntelliJ will tell you if it's valid, or SPT will tell you once you reload your project. Like if you introduce a syntax error anywhere here, then you reload your project and SPT will tell you there's an error.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So where was I? Task graph, yeah. So when you run a task, basically, you could say a dependency graph is calculated, or it's calculated before you run it. And for each task key, value is only calculated once. That's the specialty in SPT. So this also means that independent tasks may run concurrently, so several dinosaurs all coming in here at once. We can also look at this part. Where are the dinosaurs? Here. Oops. 3 dinosaur settings. And my task just basically depends on all of them. You see again the dot value. Get to it in a sec. But you also see I've just mentioned them in sequence, but they're executed in all at once, more or less. So yeah, who remembers all those crazy operators in SPT 012? Yeah, that's quite a few. So you've been using it for a while. Yeah, basically, those were used to explicitly define the graph structure of your SPT build. And well, now instead we have crazy macros to express these dependencies. I think it's more readable probably, but of course it shows you gets a little more opaque, because just by reading it, you wouldn't know that these things are executed in parallel, right? Or that they are only executed once for an invocation of a task. But so why do we even have this, right? Like SPT isn't exactly like Scala. We have this graph structure. Okay, in regular Scala, we could say we have a graph structure too. Like Chris yesterday in his CBT talk explained this, that a dependency is just calling another task, another method. But, well, SPT has this other philosophy. So a task may depend on many other tasks, it may depend on itself, but this is not exactly recursion. This is more like introducing an additional node into a task graph. And yeah, why not just plain functions? Come on. Who's complained about this before? That yeah, why don't we just use plain functions? Yeah, so we've seen we have a task graph, and in plain functions, this graph isn't just linear. Any node may be visited several times. So one way is to to cache the intermediate results. So you could say it's a bit of an inversion of control. So inversion of control, dependency injection. Some people say that's just taking a parameter. So SBT tasks, for better or worse, they don't really have parameters unless you count input tasks, which are painful to use except directly from the command line, from the SBT shell. We can reuse values. This is what I mentioned, that we only calculate one node in the graph once for one invocation, and different steps in the task don't have to know about each other. And so instead of passing parameters around, we just share them in the shared data structure. And in my opinion, modifying that directly might be a bit too error prone. So this is what we get. We get a DSL to define execution graphs. Parallelization, because why the hell not? Let's parallelize all the dinosaurs. Those chickens tend to hang around quite a while. So, they're remaining dinosaurs. It also makes it easier to analyze what the hell is going on in a build. So SBT can actually tell us dependencies between individual tasks. So where does some weird result come from? Why did I publish to Sonatype instead of to Bintray? Or why is the version in this setting, why is the version in my published artifact wrong? So let's play the inspect game. So there's this neat little task called inspect. I'll just inspect my title section now. And section. I can't type anymore, so title section. And it gives us lots of information just about this task. So the result type and the description I defined and where it comes from. So actually the point and source where this thing is defined, and its dependencies. I can do this for the building tasks as well, of course, like compile. Seems like it just has two dependencies, but we can look deeper, inspect, tree, compile, and boom. It's quite a bit of stuff going on in there. Of course, this is a tree, so you don't see the actual graph structure where you have shared dependencies of subtasks, of tasks being called. Yeah, okay. And maybe IntelliJ will make this even easier to look at, to understand one day, so you tell me if this is useful. So how do you pass parameters? So typically you wouldn't pass parameters, you would redefine a setting. So essentially, everything is overridable. You just redefine settings that tasks depend on, so typically Scala version. If you want to publish for different Scala versions, all you do is, if I wanted to do it manually, I could set Scala version is 2.11.2, and if I wanted to compile, then this wouldn't work because I am in an SBT plugin. Come on. Yeah, didn't work. Doesn't matter. Yeah, everything is overridable. Like this dinosaur overrides everything. It's so heavy. So I want to get a bit more practical. I think you want to get a bit more practical too. Like actually writing an SBT plugin, that's what I promised what we do, right? So I'm a bit too lazy to set up a GitHub project every time I create a new repo. So I'd like a plugin for that. And it's rather easy to write a plugin. So before you start writing, maybe you just want to check in the documentation if there's some plugins in there. There's tons of plugins, but it turns out I don't think there's any plugin that creates a GitHub repo for you. So why don't we just start with that? Oops. There isn't, yeah. Dinosaurs keep popping up. I think they want to tell me something like, yeah, what the hell is a plugin in SPT? I don't think I've explained that really, right? So a little bit more about architecture. So SPT is sort of recursive. So your build is built by another SPT build. And yeah, thanks, Zibit. Yeah, you put a project in my project so I can build my build. That's really, really helpful. Yeah. So it's built by another SPT build, and that build is built by yet another SPT build. But as some wise philosopher or something said, in practice, most or all recursion is at most 3 levels deep. So I haven't really seen a SPT project that goes deeper than 3 builds. But I can show you. So this is actually why your project directory in an SPT project contains another project directory, which also has a target. These are all just SPT builds, all the way down. And so the code that builds your project is in the project, and the code that builds that project is in the project. And the SPT files in the actual project basically get shunted down 1 level into the project directory. So they're essentially code that belongs to the project of your project. And so what a plugin is mostly just the library and the project for your build. So yeah, damn, let's go. So what I need to do is, I've closed it again. This is horrible. I need to go into my project and just create a new file. I'll call it GitHub plugin. And the basic structure is something like this. It's just an object, GitHub plugin that extends an auto plugin. And there's some boilerplate here. So there's this requires method. Requires def, yeah. Requires is JVM plugin. This is not always necessary, but I think if you want to automatically trigger this plugin, there's this triggers. And if all requirements are fulfilled, the plugin will automatically be added to your build. And you can use this requirement mechanism to extend existing plugins. And so another part that matters is the auto imports object. You don't need to define auto imports, but if you want to add settings that are available to to your plugin's users, then it's a good idea to put them right in here. This is also a bit of SPT magic going on. And this is where you can define some settings. So I'll define a GitHub token, because if I want to publish to GitHub, I need to use either credentials or a token. And this will be just a setting key string. And this needs to be imported. And so I'll just skip the typing, growl next. And growl is another SPT plugin that just allows me to skip forward in Git history. So did it get reloaded properly? Yeah. I just included some boilerplate, and that was the auto imports, which I should have not skipped. Doesn't matter, I'll just type it again. GitHub token is setting key string whatever, and we'll need a task too, something that actually does something in our plugin. GitHub create project. This will just be a task key. I don't know. Unit. I'd usually not use unit because it sometimes messes things up when you forget to add a dot value at the right place. And the next crucial part is override def project settings. So this is simply a sequence of settings that will be added to the plugin user's project. And I can define GitHub create project, and here colon equals, because it's setting, I'm associating a task key with a setting. And now I can just start implementing stuff, you know. I've already implemented this, and I'll just type it down for you. I'm using dispatch here because SPT is still on 0.12 and on Scala 2.10, and some newer libraries aren't really available. api.github.com/user/repos. And the usual boilerplate when you want to do HTTP, right? I guess the only interesting part here is authorization. And we'll just depend on the token setting and just go ahead and insert that right here. GitHub token.value. And this goes on, set content type, and so on. And actually, I just want to skip over that. And reload. It's SPT's favorite activity is loading stuff. Are we in the right state now? Why doesn't? Nope, that state. Okay, just one more. Doop-de-doop. Any questions so far? No?
Can you go back and show where you brought the dispatch into scope as an import?
Oh, I already just imported that as boilerplate. It's over here. I added dispatch as a dependency here to the project before.
That brings it in for the plugins and for the
Yeah, then it's available in the project as a regular dependency. So for your build definition, you can add any library and base your builds on that, or write your plugin like that. I forgot to go in presentation mode. Maybe this is a bit more visible. OK. So basically, I've just implemented this thing. And now all that's left to do is to GitHub create project and GitHub create project. Let's see if this works out. It did work out according to SPT. Let's just have a quick look in my projects on GitHub, and yeah, there it is. And that's it so far.